June 8th, Village of Ridgewood Zoning Board of Adjustment meeting. I'll make some announcements and then we'll begin. For the duration of the coronavirus health emergency, Village Hall is closed to the public and meetings are held with participants at remote locations connecting to conferencing software provided by Zoom.us. Members of the public are invited to view meetings live using the Zoom client, which also allows them to raise a hand and contribute with voice and video when they're invited to do so during public portions of the meeting. If you are a member of the public, an applicant or an expert, and you plan on giving testimony this evening, we will have to be able to see you. So you have to have video capability. You will not be able to just dial in. We'll call the meeting to order now and begin by reciting the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic
for which it stands,
one
one
nation,
nation,
under God, indivisible, liberty,
and justice
justice
for all.
The following statement is required by the Open Public Meeting Act. Adequate notice of this meeting has been provided by posting on the bulletin board in Village Hall, by mail to the Ridgewood News, the Record, and by submission to all persons entitled to same as provided by law of a schedule including date and time of this meeting. Please note that a curfew of 11 p.m. is strictly adhered to by the zoning board. No new matter involving an applicant will be started after 10:30 p.m. 10 p.m. we will make a determination and advise applicants as to whether or not they will be heard. If an applicant cannot be heard because of the lateness of the hour, the matter will be carried over to a future meeting to be determined by the board at 10 p.m. Roll call, please.
Sergio Allegra.
Here.
Greg Brown.
Here.
Gary Negritz. I'll come back to him.
Yeah, he's here. He's just on mute.
Okay. Diana Rule.
Here.
John Pepetro.
Here.
Isaac Lebo.
Here.
Matthew Bandel.
Here.
Dan Perlman.
Here.
Michael Pickles.
Here.
Michael. Gary Negritz.
Here.
Okay.
All right, great. Gary, you timed it perfectly. Good job. All right, now we need a motion to approve the minutes of May 25th, 2021.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Do we have a second?
Second.
It's Isaac and Gary.
Okay. Greg Brown.
Yes.
Gary Negritz.
Yes.
Diana Rule.
Yes.
John Pepetro.
Yes.
Isaac Lebo.
Yes.
Matthew Bandel.
Yes.
Dan Perlman.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Next is we will turn to non-agenda items. If there are any board members who would like to make a comment on a matter not on the agenda this evening, now is the time.
Sergio, can I just make one comment quick? And Bruce, tell me if we should wait to the end, but if we're going to start going back in person, when are we doing that in the first meeting in July or?
I got the memo.
It's required in July.
So all the applicants starting in July are gonna notice that it's in person, not on Zoom.
Correct. So the reorganization meeting will be that first one.
Okay. Just wanted to confirm. Thanks.
Okay. Any other board members? Okay. Now is the time for public comment. If there are any members of the public who would like to make a comment on a matter not on the agenda this evening, now is the time. Please raise your hand and Dylan will let you into the meeting.
I'm not showing any.
All right, being none, we'll now make a couple of announcements regarding applications that were on the agenda but are not being heard. If anyone is here for the Katsovich matter, 244 Ackerman Avenue, that is being carried to July 13th, 2021 without further notice. As we just said, that one will be live, not via Zoom. So Katsovich being carried to July 13th. if anyone is here for James and Lorraine Reynolds, which is at 128-130 Ackerman Avenue. That matter is also being carried to July 13th, 2021 without further notice, also live in Village Hall. Except both will be at 7:30 p.m. Okay, so now we will turn to new business. We'll now hear the matter of Sean and Jill Bruno. This is an application to permit the construction of a two-story addition, which would result in a side yard setback of 12.7 feet, where 17.64 feet is required, a rear yard setback of 27.8 feet, where 30 feet is required, and for the construction of a two-story and second-story addition, which would result in a side yard setback of 12.2 feet, where 17.64 feet is required, and a rear yard setback of 27.7 feet, where 30 feet is required, and to widen the driveway to 25.7 feet, where 15 feet is permitted at 384 Beveridge Road, Block 1303, Lot 6, in an R1 zone. Good evening.
Good evening.
Okay, Mr. Whitaker will swear you in.
I'm speaking for the Brunos, but they may want to say something first, but then I'll
If I
be
can
testifying.
Okay, if I can have you raise your right hand and the Brunos. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Okay, for the record, please state your name and address.
Jill Bruno, 384 Beveridge Road.
Sean Bruno, 384 Beveridge Road, Ridgewood, New Jersey.
Kirsten Osterkorn from Omlin and Osterkorn, 22 Madison Heights, Wyckoff, New Jersey.
Please proceed.
So we are here this evening on behalf of Sean and Jill Bruno. They're looking to put an addition onto their house. I don't think they have anything much to say in the beginning. I will be presenting their application for them as the professional engineer and planner. I'll speak to the architectural a little bit, but there's not much to talk about that. So if I need to get qualified.
Yes. Would you please provide to the board your educational and professional background?
Sure. I'm a licensed engineer in the state of New Jersey. I have my license since 2011. I graduated from Rutgers University in 2006. I've been practicing in New Jersey since 2011 in front of a lot of boards in Bergen County, Morris, Essex, Union, Hudson, Passaic. I've also a professional surveyor. I graduated from NJIT in 2008, and I have my license since 2013. And I'm a professional planner in the state of New Jersey, licensed since 2013 as well.
Any questions by board members or members of the public in connection with Osterkorn's qualifications in those fields? There being none, she'll be so qualified in those fields and can render an expert opinion in those fields. Please proceed.
Hi, thank you, board. I have been in numerous towns around this area, haven't had the privilege of being in front of you before, so hope everybody is well during the past year of life in general. I'm here before you for the Brunos. Am I able to share my screen? Yes?
Yes.
Yes.
Where's my PDF? There it is. Share. Sean and Jill Bruno live at 384 Beveridge Ave with their family. They've lived there for quite some time. And as the time has progressed and as they've lived there, they wanted to do a project last year and the year prior, but obviously things came up and now they're pursuing it at this time that they want to renovate their house and put on a minor addition in the back and add a story. Well, they have a story, but they want to fill it out for their family. They've established roots in Ridgewood. They love their town. They want to stay there and be there. And they love their house and their neighborhood. They're just looking to expand their house slightly in order to conform to their living situation. Currently, Sean's been working at home. He works in the screened-in porch. And as everyone knows with the current situations, they're going to have some office space and be able to have more of an at-home, at-work living situation. As you can see, On the plans that we submitted, 384 Beveridge Ave, we're in block 1303, lot 6. The property fronts on Beveridge. We're approximately a 75-foot by 115-foot lot. The driveway along the the east side of the house runs along the property line and actually extends to the rear of the house. So there's a lot of asphalt in the rear of the house. I'm not sure if anyone was able to drive by and visit the site prior to the meeting. Currently the site drains as the rear yard is higher than the front. Everything does drain away from the house. There isn't significant anything with drainage patterns or ponding or anything of that sort. They currently have existing nonconformities with respect to the zone. The lot area required is 14,000 square feet, and they currently and existing have 8,367, which remains. The required lot width is 100 feet. They have 75.3 feet. Similarly, the lot width at any point along the frontage within 140 feet is supposed to be 80 feet, and they have 75 feet. Their lot depth required is 120 feet. They're at 108.42 feet. They have a lot of existing nonconformities with the lot as a whole. With respect to the building, the required setback, as explained by the chairman, is 17.64 feet. The existing house is 12.2 and 12.7. The rear yard required is 30 feet and the existing is 27.7 on the southeast corner and 27.8 on the southwest corner. The coverages of the property required is 20%, existing is 15.8. They also meet their gross building area under existing conditions as well as maximum coverage under existing conditions. If we go to proposed conditions, we're taking the same general footprint of the house, and to speak in general terms, they're looking to square off their house. They're putting a minor bump out on the southeast corner, a slightly larger, but basically in essence to square off the house in the southwest corner. With that, with the location of the garage that they're actually looking to build so they could actually use it, they're turning their driveway to open it up in the front so it's a usable garage area. With that, all of the asphalt that we had talked about that was at the rear of the property, because the garage entrance previously was to the rear of the building, is being removed. So the driveway now is going to stop at the front of the house. It will open up in order to have access to the garage from the front, which is very typical for most houses in general everywhere. And all of the asphalt that was at the rear of the property is now going to be turned to grass and a lawn area to have a nice rear yard space. With that, under proposed conditions, the lot area, lot width, lot depth all remain the same as existing nonconformities. Under proposed conditions, we're keeping the existing nonconformities in terms of side yard setbacks for the 12.2 and 12.7. We are squaring it off in the rear of the building and will remain with that. However, with the rear yard setback, we were at 27.7 and 27.8. We are holding that with a little bump out, and we are expanding the rear of the house and meeting that same rear yard setback that exists, but we are making the building bigger. In terms of gross building area and coverages, we are increasing the floor area and increasing the building coverage, but still maintaining under what's allowed under the ordinance. Allowed is 3,599 square feet. We are proposing 2,888 square feet. For max coverage improvements, 45% is allowed, which is 3,765 square feet. Under proposed conditions, we're actually reducing coverage. We were at 3,681 square feet. Our proposed conditions are now 3,065 square feet. So while we are increasing the building footprint because of the elimination of the driveway along the side of the house and to the rear, we are reducing coverage as a whole. So from a drainage impact, there will be minimal, if any, impact to any neighbors. We're not proposing any sort of drainage at this time because of the reduction in coverage. The only neighbors that would be question stuff are to the south and to the east. But by the elimination of the coverage and the driveway in the rear, we're making it better by putting grass area. With the neighbor to the west, the minimal increase in addition on this side is not going to impact them with the grass area that we have existing. And into the front, everything does drain to the street as it is. So with a little area of increase of the driveway, we'll have minimal impact. Overall, from an engineering standpoint, this is a very straightforward application with the reduction of impervious coverage of having impacts to the neighbors. From a planning perspective, with the proposed existing nonconformities of the structure, the renovation and addition does fit within the neighborhood. We drove down the street, we looked at neighboring properties, having the 1.5 to 2 family dwellings, having the nice second floor, a garage that enters from the front, having space in the back to be able to use it for a little bit of storage, having a deep garage, all fits with the intent and purpose of the zone plan within the neighborhood. Our hardship is with pre-existing nonconformities with respect to lot width and lot area, as well as the setbacks. We're not exacerbating the setbacks at all. We're not bumping them out in either direction while we are squaring off the building. We're still meeting the setbacks that we had originally. Under the C1 criteria, it is a lawfully existing structure. As I said, we're not exacerbating what's proposed. With the impacts to all of the neighbors, as I went over, I will go over the architectural plans next, just to show you, I know it was submitted, but just to show you what it's going to look like. The impact to all the neighbors isn't anything of creating a sort of tall structure that's going to tower over anybody specifically. And speaking of that, let me bring that up. If I just switch screens now, is that visible or no?
Let's try.
I could see it.
You can see the architectural now?
Yeah. I can
Okay.
see it.
Good. Just a
So,
little small.
While I'm not licensed as an architect, I'm just going to briefly be able to go over what they're planning for the sake of the minor addition. As you can see on the proposed foundation plan, there is a minor bump out in the garage area and new crawl space with respect to the basement. Under the first, as for the first floor, as I stated, the garage is going to get slightly extended. Originally, there was access from the back of the building, so now it's from the front of the building, and it still creates an area to, have a workspace, have tools and storage and such for all the kids. And in the kitchen area, the bump out is being able to expand the kitchen area, create a window to be able to see into the rear yard. And as I stated, we're just squaring off the rear of the building. Everything in the front is remaining the same. The second floor, the bedrooms upstairs are going to be relocated, and they're having a new bedroom with the expanded above the garage area. And then the master bedroom and laundry area and bathroom is how they're expanding up on the second floor. From the front, driving down the street, if you can see how they're looking to build and frame and do the building is not something that's going to tower over, or it's not overbuilding the site. With adding on to the second floor and adding the area over the garage, they're creating the building to be more in conformity and symmetrical with itself. The roof lines and roof area all work together. They're not creating this, I just envision this master look of being superior over all of the neighbors. All of the ridge lines of how they're created, and even at the rear of the site, which is where the main addition is going to be, as you can see how the ridge lines were done, create some definition to the house. You've got the change in from the back view of the main floor versus the other angles of the house. I'm not describing that very well, but I understand. I get what I'm talking about. Overall, the project as a whole is what I look at as very small. They're adding a minor addition to their house. they're in front of you because of their existing nonconformities in terms of lot width, lot depth, lot area, setbacks. And as a project whole, they're not exacerbating anything or making it worse. So when I looked at the aerial images and the intent of the plan and drove down the street, a lot of the lots, areas, some are bigger, some of the houses are bigger on the property, but in general, this addition, what you're doing is going to be all in conformance with the neighborhood. And ultimately, the addition that they're putting on top will look in conformance, and the minor addition out to the back, in reality, no one's going to see from the street. So the impact to the neighborhood is going to be de minimis. With respect to the driveway, I know we have it listed as a variance. The driveway width is supposed to be 1/5 of the lot width, which is 15 feet. And we're asking, we have 13 feet, which is existing coming, well, we slid the driveway over slightly. It was 8.5 and now we're 13. And as we get past the front yard, we're expanding up to 25.7 feet. Ultimately, the purpose of this is to access the garage on this side, and we wanted to maintain the existing curb cut. If we slid everything over and tried to align ourselves with the driveway, we just felt we were losing the ability of usable area that was already there for the driveway and the curb cut on this side of it. And they were already used to just coming in and driving, that they'd be able to still park their cars, be able to pull up over here while still be able to pull in. They're planning for the future. I mean, they have kids. Eventually, everybody's going to have cars. And while it is a variance, we find it very de minimis in the sake of the additional impervious, and the impact, honestly, to the public right of way and the neighbors is very small. And we thought holding the initial curb cut was more beneficial than trying to come in straight in and create a straight look to a front. This actually adds some more definition to their front yard, allowing for more green space to buffer the whole front area. Ultimately, I think from a planning's perspective, everything I'm saying is the house is not overbuilt with respect to the lot area. We're upgrading it to a more common style with the street and streetscape. I think ultimately everything does benefit the neighborhood, the master plan. What they're asking for is not of a substantial detriment and is not going to impact the neighbors, the master plan, the town at all. If Jill and Sean want to add any input as to why they're doing what they're doing, I would think this is a nice time for them to do that if they wanted to.
Thanks, Kirsten. Obviously, she gets the more technical end of it. Just from our perspective is currently we don't have a guest room upstairs. We have 2 kids. So right now we have the master and we have 2 other bedrooms, which our children occupy. My parents like to come visit from Florida. Even if we were to have a sitter stay the night, it's just nice to have the extra bedroom. With the kitchen, our kitchen is very, very small. And we were just looking to kind of match to the back of the house. Also, we are kind of limited, with this footprint of the house. We'll never have 2 family rooms or some of the things I see in other homes, but where we can add the spaces in the kitchen, which we do spend a lot of time in. So that's why we decided to do this.
Yeah, I'd like to add, I think from a function perspective, obviously the house years ago was probably changed, or the garage was added, and it's not really functional to pull around back. I think more than 3/4 of the backyard is pavement. It's really challenging to get into the garage. So I think the benefit to move the garage to the front and make it more accessible.
I actually think for the neighbors to the side or behind us, it will be more appealing to have more, grass and greenery back there than just the asphalt. So.
And I also feel, obviously with the current pandemic and the change in the way people are working, I've moved several times through the past 18 months to try to find a place to work. So I think the home
It gets too hot in the sunroom right now.
I think the home office would be a welcome addition to the home, and to make it more current living conditions from what we're facing now.
All right, great. Thank you for that. If there's no
Can I just say
additional-
one more, can I say one more thing?
Sure, of course, of course.
When Sean and I, we fell in love with Ridgewood. We have close friends in Glen Rock and Ridgewood. We said we didn't want a major fixer-upper project. And we pulled up to this house, just saw the outside, the brick and everything, and we were sold before we even walked into it. I didn't want to change the appeal of the house. I love the house. So I just wanted to say that.
Yeah, and to finish, I mean, we tried our best through planning to make it,
To stay true to the house, where, you know.
Lisa, to make it conform to the best of what Ridgewood is, and I believe what should be, so. We did make a valid effort at that.
All right, great. Why don't we open it up to board members if they have any questions? Just go around the horn. Diana, Rule, any questions?
Yeah, I was just looking over the map. For R1 zone, the limit is 35% or 2856. We just need to add an extra variance for gross building area because they're at 2888. I mean, it's not significant, but
We had the gross building areas being allowed to be the 3,599 square feet.
No, that's the maximum if you had a conforming lot.
Oh,
yeah, so like I
The
said,
cutting
it's not
number is your square footage.
difference
With-
over.
Does that mean we have to have a whole nother hearing if we have to apply for another variance now?
Bruce,
I don't think so.
no, I think you had for any and all variances
You have a
that come up
catch-all,
during
you
the
notice
hearing.
it.
You had your
Okay.
catch-all at the end.
Okay.
yeah, I just want to make it clear that there is that variance for the extra, whatever, 32 feet. But because you're
Where is
under
that? Where is
The
that?
R1 zone.
R1 gross building area.
Oh, because it's not really the 3,000, what is it?
So
Sorry.
what is, I'm missing what it's supposed to be.
56.
Diana, put that on the record again.
It says it's for lots under 8,400 square feet, it's the lesser of 35% or 2856 square feet of GBA.
Oh, and so 35% is 2928. Okay, so it's
Or you get
but
stuff
the
under.
lesser, okay.
Yeah. I mean, we're talking about 32 square feet. We're not, but I just wanted to make sure when we're accurate on what we're asking for.
Thank you.
Good catch. Any
I
other
like-
question, Diana?
No, I was doing my math earlier. I'll let other people ask questions and maybe come back.
All right. Isaac Lebo, questions?
No, I really don't. I'm okay with what they presented tonight.
All right, thanks. Dan Perlman, questions?
I don't have any questions at this time. Thank you.
All right. Michael Pickles,
No questions, thanks.
Gary Negritz.
Not at this time. I'm looking at something. I'll get back to you.
All right. Greg Brown,
No questions. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Jonathan, okay. Jonathan Petro, any questions?
Yes, a couple. The area in the back that's all asphalt, you mentioned is going to be completely removed, and that's all new grass, just all
Yes.
grass, nothing else. And I see on the plans, you have some slate walks that are just going to come around, but other than that, it's going to be all grass.
Yes, I mean,
Yeah.
I imagine the homeowners at some time are gonna add some landscaping and, beautify their property. But I mean, at this point, when they do the construction, I mean, they're replacing anything that was impervious with grass.
Good. Okay. Now, on the other question is the driveway. I see what you're trying to do. So not wanting to make any changes to the house or move the garage. Keeping the driveway a little wider there allows additional cars, but also ingress and egress, backing out and maybe driving down the driveway to the street rather than backing all the way out. It all makes perfect sense. And so I understand why you're doing it. That if we would have just kept the arc of the driveway, you're really only adding a small corner there as extra space. And that's a small amount, maybe a couple of 100 square feet, maybe less. So rather than keep a more narrow driveway, additional space gives you some flexibility.
You're talking about right here?
Is that the purpose? Just so you have easier ingress and egress if there
Just
happens
to,
to be another
to
vehicle.
turn into the garage or have just,
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, a typical parking space is 9 feet wide by 18 feet in depth, right? So their
Yes.
existing driveway was only 8.5 feet wide. So it wasn't even like a normal, so they would drive in very narrowly. So with a 13-foot wide drive, it's actually not the ability to park 2 cars at all for passing. It just gives a more comfort of an area to be able to pull in. And when I was looking at the cars turning and I ran my template that I have, when I held the narrower area that they had previously, trying to actually get into the garage was just, it wasn't fluid in order to have. So then even when someone backs out, if they wanted to like turn their car to do a K-turn and be able, that this area, instead of making it tighter, does create a, while you said a minor additional 100 square feet, it makes it more fluid for the cars to turn around. And it does give the ability that if someone were to pull all the way up and, end at the garage in 18 foot, someone technically could still, while tight, but good drivers. So then they have the benefit of not allowing their children to drive for a very long time because only the adults can drive the cars, can still fit in. If a car was parked right here, they still could pass it and get into their garage with some space and it not be uncomfortable.
also,
Understood. Go ahead.
I had submitted to Jane, I don't know if it's how relevant it is, but she had said, oh, go ahead and send it to me. There are about 4 houses on our block that have 2-car garages, but we did not want that, but definitely there are people who have the very wide, there are, like I said, 4 houses that have, 2-car garages on our street.
Understood. Yes, I've seen the area. I know the area, and 2-car garages on your street are certainly not uncommon. But I appreciate your optioning not to increase the garage, but as an alternative, a little more surface area to provide ingress and egress. So that explains that extra area well enough for me on the driveway.
Thank you.
One last question. Is any part of that driveway, rather than asphalt, are you considering some pervious material, bricks, blocks, or anything like that rather than blacktop?
We hadn't really thought about that, I don't think. I think we're just gonna keep it what it is, the asphalt. That's pretty much the look that most people have.
Okay, very good. That's all I have for now, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. And I think I've got Matthew, who's the only other person that I didn't ask. Do you have any questions?
I don't have any questions. I'm all set. Thank you.
I got a couple of questions about the trees.
Oh, go ahead, Gary.
Yeah, and forgive me, I have no idea what kind of a tree is anything, but I'm not a tree person per se. But you have a tree, got 3 stems in it, three trunks, if you will, right near the edge of the existing driveway. And is that tree coming out?
My husband wants to try to save that tree.
We actually,
He loves that tree.
I know it's not actually shown on here and the trees that are in the front that we, I actually don't know why they were missing from the survey, the larger trees in the front, but know that I met with the Brunos on site and they specifically wanted to keep that tree. I have it. I know it's going to sound silly. It's on like a no plot layer that I was designing around, was actually to keep that tree. They didn't want to take that tree down.
Now there's some other very nice trees in the front of the house. And are any of those going to get
The one, I believe, Jill, it's still there. The one to the left
have
of
one, yeah.
the brick walkway.
They won't have to, nothing's
None of
gonna
the,
come
none
down
of the,
with
nothing
construction.
in the front's coming down for trees. We're gonna try to keep all the trees.
I know, because I was looking at, and the photos
We have taken trees out. We did have to take a tree out. It was unhealthy, had damage.
I'm talking
That
I'm
was
talking about the
for-
trees that exist.
We won't be taking any down with the construction. I mean,
But there's a
I
couple
don't,
of them that are closer to that driveway, which is currently 8.5 feet. And you're gonna make it 5 feet, almost 5 feet wider. And it
Is
sure looks to me like you're gonna take some tree out.
I know it's from Google Street View from 2018 with Jill and
Yeah.
Sean.
Yeah, that tree had to be removed, actually.
That tree's already
Yeah.
gone.
that's old.
And the front by the driveway was sick.
Yes, that one's already gone.
I'm talking about a tree that I looked at this morning.
There's one
That's-
small tree, yeah.
That's up on the, that's
Oh, that-
further up on the, by the garage, where the garage would be, right? It has about 6 different stems coming out of it. It's a very nice tree.
Is there?
This is the
another
tree that in the photos that were included with your application, it looks like it's a birch tree. And the comment on the
Yeah.
photo is existing birch tree to be removed, refer to site plan.
Yeah, I'm trying to keep the tree, to be honest with you, if I can. My thought is, I don't know if it's possible, is even if I have to cut one stem down that's closest to the driveway, I would do that before cutting the whole tree down, if possible. And I'm thinking I could put a little, circle kind of stone and flowers in that. And it will split the driveway a little bit, but I still would love to keep the tree if I can.
All right, well, that's good. Gary, is that enough of an answer for you? So which is essentially they're gonna try to keep the tree, but obviously things may happen during construction that may necessitate, some or all of it coming down.
I will say, if we do, we'll pull, my plan would be then to, put trees up, right? I mean, I have, a few trees I'd like to put back in the property, but waiting for construction.
Yeah, we were both upset when the one had to get taken down in the front, but it
I just
was
want
a hazard with the kids, so.
construction to be done and then we'll do the landscaping, but I want to put a tree hopefully on the, I guess if you're looking at the house, the left side, and then maybe something, hopefully I can save the tree by the driveway.
All right.
Mhm.
Thank you. Gary, anything else?
No, that's, just, and I don't know whether I missed it, Jane, but I did not see a survey. Am I missing it? I just, we've got some arithmetic that we have to fix and some things like that. And I thought every application has to have a survey, a standalone survey, legal,
Okay,
signed, sealed. Did I miss it?
you didn't
I
miss it.
see
thought-
the
because there
usual
was-
on the plot plan that the architect extracts from the survey, but I didn't find the survey.
And there was not because they had the site plan.
Pardon?
I believe we are, on my plan that we have when we do the information, we reference a survey by All County Surveying. And that's how we established our plan. We went out there and surveyed to
I'm
resurvey the
not saying
property.
it wasn't done.
I know, so I just didn't know. if
I'm
the
saying
survey-
it's a required part of the record.
So Jill and Sean, were the copies from All County?
Well, our
Did
survey
it?
was old. Our survey was old, and so.
No. Hold on, let me, so I was working with Jane and we were advised that because we had the site plan, the survey wasn't required.
That is not correct.
Okay, that's,
So I can take
I'm
my.
just saying, it sounds like we got a few loose ends we need to clean up.
I can issue a
the chart-
standalone survey, very simply. I can issue that as a separate document.
It should be. That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying that what's on here is incorrect.
Okay,
I'm saying I would like to make sure that in the event this is approved, that the documents that are on file are complete,
okay,
right? The other thing is your chart is, and again, I asked the question, Jane, does anybody look at this before it gets submitted? The application didn't contain the standardized form. The chart does not reflect the standards that we get on every form. It just makes the document questionable, in my opinion. All right.
What's the question, Gary?
Take a look. For instance, you have a required column. A required column comes right out of zoning. This does not have that. All right. It's just, quite frankly, sloppy. All right. Now,
So
you're the
there's two
chairman.
things.
You can
Hold on,
decide what you want to
hold
do.
on, Gary. There's two things. One is the documentation the way we like it presented, right? And maybe the answer to that is no. The other question is what they submitted sufficient enough for us to render a decision this evening? If the answer to that is no, and I'll take Bruce Whitaker's word for this, then yes, they'll have to come back with different documents in order for us to render a decision. But what I don't want to do is spend half an hour here not happy with the way this looks when we could actually vote on this. So Bruce, why don't you give us some guidance and let us know whether or not they need to come back with a better looking table or whether we can actually move forward.
So my suggestion would be this. The document does have to be revised. It has to list the other variants. I think Gary's right in that we should have the standalone survey.
Right.
If all of those documents, just so we don't hold up the applicant, if we can review those documents at the next meeting and get confirmation that they are now are proper, why don't you poll and take a vote, assuming those things occur tonight? And that way I could draft a resolution that would be available for the next meeting. You will not act on the resolution until you look at the revised plan. It would help, I'm sure, the applicant in trying to move ahead with the project.
That makes sense to me.
can I ask, aside from the term of being sloppy, besides a missing variance for less than 35% and 285 square feet in a standalone survey, what else in my chart? Is there like a template that it needs to be reorganized to be not sloppy, in your opinion, of why this would be pushed to another meeting?
Typically, because you don't give us any dimensions, right? Dimensions. How do we calculate the gross building area if we decide we want to check it?
Yeah,
There are no
what you have to do,
dimensions.
That's what the architect's plans has.
Miss, what I am trying to tell you is typically we would get, all right, this is the area of the building. This is the area of the garage. This is the area of the addition. So we can look at it, because we have some people who come in and I don't know right now, I can't tell whether or not they've included all the parts and pieces.
Kirsten, there doesn't seem to be a breakdown on the site plan of how coverages were calculated.
So the left side where I give a coverage table, when I say dwelling, above grade structure, because I don't break it down to living space versus garage area.
No, you should break down at this point what exists and what is being proposed.
I have that in a chart on the left-hand side. I just don't, I have a building as a whole. I don't separate out by room. I have dwelling, driveway, walkway.
All right.
And it gives a breakdown on there's a chart on the left side of the zoning table.
Okay. I was looking at this. I was looking for existing and proposed side by side. I see it now. It's there. Okay.
So is it because it doesn't specify garage versus living space?
No,
not at all.
I am trying to understand how you got the numbers. Okay.
So why don't we do this? We have the table that we provide.
Electronically, we get this, some architects do it electronically, some do
Gary,
it. However,
what we're trying to figure out is how to get to from point A to point B, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to take a vote yay or nay tonight, and we're going to get a revised set of documents, including a zoning table for the next meeting that we'll look at.
Right, so I'm trying to understand what needs to be
the only thing
revised.
the architect was asking was, what do I
Yeah,
expect to
sorry,
see?
sorry.
You know, we're not going to get very far if I can't speak, because I run this meeting. So what we're going to do is we're going to provide the table that Jane provides, and you're going to fill it in.
Perfect, thank you.
Based on that, we are going to look at it at the next meeting, right? And if it's if it comports with our understanding this evening, and by the way, this is assuming that we approve this, right? Because we haven't even gotten there yet. We haven't even gotten to public questions. But really, this is just a matter of putting numbers into a table, which you will do for the next meeting.
Yes.
Are we good with that? Okay, good. So now I'd like to open it up for public questions. If there are any members of the public who have any questions, now is the time. Please raise your hand and Dylan will let you in. Anyone, Dylan?
There's none. No one's raising their hand.
Okay, so that's 4 questions. If there's any member of the public that would like to comment on the application, now is the time. Again, raise your hand, Dylan will let you in.
I'm showing none.
All right, so there's no public question or comment. Now, are there any other questions by board members before we close the hearing? Are there any questions as to the procedure before we vote? All right. You can feel free to make a closing summary, or we can close the meeting and deliberate. Either the Brunos or Ms. Osterkorn, you could make a closing statement, but you're not required to.
I would just like to thank you all for your time tonight. I appreciate where all of you are coming from. I understand you want things done the right way. We will do it the right way. We, like I said, are trying to, keep the house, keep with the charm of the house. We will save that tree if it's possible, which I think it will be. And that's it. Sorry, I'm like super nervous. Okay, that's all.
No, thank you, the board. During our submission of plans, while I have submitted other plans, I haven't been in front of the board with Ridgewood before. However, during comments and stuff, the idea of the table didn't come up before. So I apologize if it wasn't to the standard and how you want to see everything spelled out in a certain way, but I will make sure to do that with the next revision and for any other future plans with the town. But just circling back to the overall intent for the Brunos, we are just looking to square off the back of the house, clean up the second floor of the dwelling, create a house. As they said, they love the town of Ridgewood and want to stay there. So the de minimis, as I say, minor variances that we're requesting are all within conformance of existing nonconformities, and they're not looking to exacerbate anything within their property, overbuild it, and just continue to fit within the neighborhood. So I thank you for your time tonight.
All right, thank you. Thank you for your presentation. Thank you for your patience, both of you. We'll now close the hearing and we'll open it up for board members to deliberate and or introduce a motion. Board members.
Mr. Chairman, this is John Papico speaking. I'd like to introduce a motion to approve this application as it's been presented with the additions and corrections that our board attorney has recommended be provided before it is finally approved, and that the Ms. Osterkorn has recognized will be provided.
Excellent. Do we have a second?
This is Matt. I second.
All right, Matthew, you second. Roll call, please.
Greg Brown,
Yes.
Gary Negritz,
Yes.
Diana Rule,
Yes.
John Pepetro,
Yes.
Isaac Lebo,
Yes.
Matthew Bandel,
Yes.
Chairman Allegra.
Yes. All right, you're approved. So based on the discussion we had, just provide the documentation and we will, pass the resolution at the next meeting and you'll be ready to go.
Great.
Good
Thank
luck.
you so
everybody.
much.
Jane,
Thank you
Jane,
so
will
much
you-
and have a great night.
Thank you so much. Jane, will you be able to send me
Yeah, I'll send that
whatever
to
you want it to look like?
I'll send it tomorrow morning.
Thank you so
Mr.
much. Have a great
Ms.
evening.
Ostakorn,
Thanks, everybody.
Thank
Ms.
you.
Ostakorn, just send that when you have it revised directly to me so I have enough time to get the resolution done.
I'll get that revised ASAP. Thank you, Mr. Whitaker. Have a great evening.
Thanks,
All right,
everybody.
Thank you, everybody.
Okay, so next, we're gonna move on to the matter of John and Sue Malloy. It's an application to permit the construction of a second-story addition, which would result to be 8.5 feet from the existing garage, where 12 feet is the minimum required at 663 Delaware Avenue, Block 4504, Lot 26 in an R2 zone. Who do we have to bring in, Jane?
Okay, so John and Sue Malloy. And sorry. Let's see, yeah, see if they have, who they have with them.
Brought them in, they just have to unmute and
Mm. Yeah. Tell them we don't have any.
they're there.
Hi, yeah, sorry, it's just us this evening. Our architect had a vacation planned, so we'll just be, we're just going it on.
Fair enough. We'll get you sworn in and we'll get started.
Sure.
Raise your right hand, please. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Yes.
Please give your full name and address.
John Malloy, 663 Delaware Avenue.
Suzanne Malloy, 663 Delaware Avenue.
Thank you. Please proceed.
Okay, so if you could give us a description of what it is you want to do with your project. If you could, I don't know if you could share your screen. Some of us have the drawings in front of us on a second screen here. But if you could also walk us through what the drawings show and the requested variance.
Sure. So let me just, let me, here's the screen share, use the Teams.
Here.
Yeah, this one.
Oh.
Okay. Okay, so here are the drawings. I try to make it as big as I can. Tell me if you want to zoom in. Well, I guess first, we have a newer survey. This was the survey, just to give you an idea. That basically we're not changing the footprint of anything that's here. All this is remaining the same. So nothing is changing as far as the footprint of the house. What we want to do is build out, add a second addition on top of a first floor, one-story addition in the back here. This is already non-conforming with the distance to the garage. So this would add a second story and would add a 2-foot overhang over the first story. That's the driver for the construction. This adds this would add a master bedroom over the back room. Then inside, we're also there's one bathroom upstairs for the current 3 bedrooms. That will we're taking that and some of the closet space in the existing bedroom, master bedroom, and making the master bedroom smaller, and then having 2 bathrooms here, one a master bath and the other a bathroom for the other 3 bedrooms. As we go, let me take you down here so in order to make it look normal and nice, here We are going to reframe the roof. So here's the existing roof line here. And currently the house is completely double dormered out. I'm sorry, this isn't the existing roof line. I'm sorry, this is the existing roof line of the original cape. Currently the roof goes like kind of like this because it's completely double dormered out and it peaks at the original peak on the original cape. Obviously, in order to add a second floor in the addition out the back here, that would have been really difficult and strange to do, trying to maintain the existing roof line here. So in order to make it look normal and attractive, we're going to reframe the roof here to peak it, which will then allow us to add, a peaked roof over the extension in the back here. And that really is, then the house will be re-sided and other things. But those are the primary changes to the house.
So if you scroll down, so I guess it's G01, could you go over the zoning table a little bit?
If I scroll down to where?
Sheet G-01, might be a different file. There's a zoning chart. That's it.
Got it right there.
Yeah, that's it.
Right. So, yeah, we're not, like I said, we're not changing anything here that doesn't currently exist.
So it looks like your setbacks, right? If you're going front and the side and the combined all look like they remain the same.
Yes.
But then the rear, right?
Mm-hmm.
That you're getting 2 feet closer because of that overhang. But that doesn't require a variance, so you're fine.
Yeah.
And then getting further down, it's the distance from garage to dwelling, which is currently 10.58 feet.
Yes.
Where 12 is required, but that 2 foot overhang or the addition that's 2 feet deeper, that's what's driving now 8.58 feet.
Yes.
Okay. Anything else you'd like to say in your testimony before we open it up to questions?
Yeah, just, we do think, that the appeal should be approved, again, just because it's already a non-conforming structure that we're building over. It seems to be a very common non-conforming situation throughout the neighborhood, just walking around the neighborhood. I see many houses which have been built recently, up, which either complete tear downs or, tear offs that have gone up. So they're not the original capes, and they all seem to have, or many of them, dozens of them have garages that seem to be less than 12 feet from the house. So I think it's fairly common. And I don't think anything we're asking for here will have any negative impact, on any of the neighbors. I think it's, a very tiny, minor change.
And I just wanted to add that, we love this neighborhood and we love the lawns. All our kids went to Hawes and we want to stay in our house. We have 3 boys and
Right, they were all born here. Well, not here, but Valley. But.
yeah, we were all born. We've been here for around 18 years. But yeah, so we really just love this neighborhood, and we
rather than the house, and we're trying to stay in
give
it.
a little more space.
Great. Thank you. We'll open up for questions. Diana, any questions?
No, I'm all set.
Okay. Jonathan, questions?
Yes, a few things. Just a technical discrepancy on numbers here. And I'm looking at the zoning chart we received with the application for existing conditions on gross building area and gross building area within 140 feet. And that zoning chart in the application paperwork doesn't match the existing numbers on the G-01. I'll ask for some guidance here from our board attorney. Can this be just considered a typo and we'll make a correction on the plans? Or do we need anything more to confirm which one is correct?
I think they just have to be, it has to be modified so that they are consistent and they have to be correct. I think that's something the architect could modify and submit right to Jane before the next meeting.
Okay, Mr. and Mrs. Malloy, did you follow that? The numbers on the G-01 plan for gross building area and gross building area within 140 feet, they don't match what you have on your application. So we need to know which one is correct and confirmed.
John, would the ones in the application trigger a variance? I'm assuming no, but.
Well, the ones in the application under existing do not. They just don't match what's on the drawing G-01. So we need consistency there, but.
Oh, it's just the existing that doesn't match?
Exactly, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so it doesn't
Yeah, it
trigger.
doesn't affect the variance.
It just
Okay.
doesn't match. Now, the other question is, it's a little more involved.
I'm sorry, Mr. Pietro, Pat Pietro, could you just say again, what was the square, what was the number itself that you need to?
On your, the numbers that you have on the zoning compliance table, that's part of the application, that
Yep.
one page. Well, in the area there under existing conditions, the numbers there for gross building area and gross building area within 140 feet, those numbers do not match the numbers you have for existing dimensions under the same two categories on your G-01. So those numbers have to be the same.
Yep.
Okay, the other thing is we have some pictures here, black and white pictures. Who took all these pictures and when, Mr. and Mrs. Malloy? We received, I have here one, two, I numbered them. I think we have 6, 7, how many do I have here? 7 pictures we received, black and white photographs. I just wonder who took them and when?
They were submitted as part of the application?
Yes. Okay.
It wasn't, I'm not sure.
Not
I'm
sure,
not sure who
might be
took
our
those.
builder.
Yeah, I'm not sure who took those pictures because they weren't in the copy of the
Okay.
application I received. Because the
Using those pictures, and then some of them are overhead as well, from overhead, as if it was a, well, an overhead shot from some computer source. My question, second question for these is, we have, as part of the application, a form from our secretary that tells us whether or not any previous applications for zoning or planning board were made, and it says none. When were those dormers built and were they permitted? And then that room in the back that you're building over there, that's also appears to be an addition that's very close to your garage. When was that built? So when were these conditions of the original house changed? Knowing of something of the area where most of those homes are simple Cape Cod and did not have full dormers, front and rear. So when did those full dormers get added along with that back addition, and were there permits for any of that?
Well, those were there when we bought the house, and they were we bought the house in 2003.
Okay.
And those were built sometime in the 1990s,
It was
I
as
believe.
is.
And when we bought the house, we were checking with Village Hall, trying to get confirmation of what we're asking for about the permits. And they said that all the paperwork had been destroyed in a flood. And, therefore the building has to have been assumed to have been, in conformance as is. It had been.
Okay, I understand. Mr. Whitaker, this falls under one of the conditions where previous records are not clearly available. So do we presume at this point that those additions are acceptable as is, as a result of lost village records?
Yes,
Okay, good. So we can accept the house as is and not have to be concerned about approving
Correct.
something may not be approved. Okay, well, that was it. So they exist lawfully, and you're adding on to the home. And the only issue I had then was those discrepancies in the figures. Otherwise, I understand what you're trying to do. I think it's a modest and reasonable change, which I would be in favor of. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Let's see, I think I went Diana, Jonathan, Greg.
No questions, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Okay, Gary, questions?
One question, my understanding is that the reason for the gap between the garage and the house, or if the garage is part of the house, is fire rating. You've got a vehicle with a gas tank, all right? And so I'm wondering if there's any provision and where I'm with John. I don't think it's a huge catastrophe. I'm just thinking that maybe there needs to be some, I don't know, fireproof insulation in that corner of the addition there, so that the intent, even though we don't have 12 feet, we still got some fire safety.
the building code requirements will prevail, no matter what the zoning board does. It's a building code requirement, which the zoning board doesn't have jurisdiction per se over, but the resolutions of approval all reflect as one of the conditions that it must meet all building code standards. So I know in the past, we've had a construction code official require modifications to a garage when it's that close with fireproofing.
Yeah, one or the other, the house or the garage. I mean, I just, whatever's easiest.
I wouldn't, it's nothing to put into a resolution. It's something the construction code official will deal with.
Okay, that's just the question.
Yeah, no, it's a good point. I thought, Mrs. Malloy, I know that you probably think that the requirement is due to aesthetics, but it really isn't. It's as Gary described, fires jump from building to building, and you get close to that garage, that goes up in flames, your house could go up. So something to think about. But as Bruce said, the code official will make sure that you at least meet code when you do build.
You can talk to your architect too. Might have a suggestion.
Okay.
Dan Proman, questions?
I don't have any, thank you.
Okay. Isaac Lebo,
No questions.
Mike Pickles,
No questions.
and Matt, did I ask you yet?
No, but I'm all good.
You're all good too. All right, so let's open it up to members of the public. If you're a member of the public and you would like to ask any questions about this application, now is the time. Please raise your hand and Dylan will let you into the meeting.
I'm showing none.
Okay, and now, if there are any members of the public who would like to make a comment regarding this application, now is the time. Please raise your hand. Dylan will let you in.
I'm showing none.
Okay, so the hearing, actually, no, Mr. Malloy, you can make a closing statement if you like. You don't have to, but
No,
you can.
Just
We'll
want to
close the
say,
hearing.
thank you for your time this evening. So,
All right, thank you. So we'll close the hearing and we'll open it up for either deliberations or a motion.
This is Matt. I'll make a motion to approve based on the lot being undersized in width and the existing location of the garage relative to the house.
Okay, do we have a second?
I'll second.
Nope, I didn't catch. Who was that?
Gary,
All right, so Matt and Gary.
Greg Brown,
Yes.
Gary Negritz,
yes,
Diana Rule,
Yes.
John Pepitro,
Yes,
Isaac Lebo,
Yes.
Matthew Bandel,
Yes.
and Chairman Allegra.
Yes. You're approved. Good luck with your construction.
All right.
All right.
Thank you
Great.
so much.
Thank you very much.
We appreciate it.
All right. Yes, take care.
Bye.
All right, so we've got one more new business matter. That's the Alborn. What we'll do is we'll just take, it's 8:44. Let's try to come back around 8:50 and we'll begin that case. I think we've got Mr. Rutherford and Roger and a few people we can let in while we take a break. All right. Okay, if we can start making our way back.
Hey, Dylan? Okay, we're gonna need David Rutherford. And Roger Schlicht. And the Alborns. I don't know if we need anybody else. Mr. Rutherford?
Can't see them yet. There they are. There's Roger.
All right, good evening. I think we're waiting on Mr. Alborn. Anyone else? And Bruce. Once Bruce opens up, we'll get back. And
no.
Sergio, I'm going to
Yep.
recuse myself.
Oh, that's right.
Uses herself.
Yeah.
Roger
Roger.
application.
His fault.
Okay. All right.
I'll be back. Just text me when you guys are back.
Yes. All right, and Bruce is here. So we can call the meeting back to order. And we will proceed with the next matter, which is that of Andrew and Jacqueline Alborn. It's an application to permit the expansion of the home, front and rear porch, and detached garage, which will result in a side yard setback of 17.8 feet, where 20 feet is required. Coverage by above grade structures within 140 feet of the front lot line of 22.7%, where 20% is permitted. Gross building area within 100 feet of the front lot line of 33.8%, where 29% is permitted. And coverage by improvements within 100 feet of the front lot line of 42%, where 40% is permitted, at 313 Bedford Road, block 1311, lot 5 in an R1 zone. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. For the record, my name is David L. Rutherford. I'm appearing tonight on behalf of Andrew and Jacqueline Alborn, who are on the call here. And I'm also accompanied by Roger Schlicht, who is our architect. And we have a court reporter too. I believe she's here. Kim Furbacher is here as well. So thank you. Thank you for your time this evening. I prepared a fairly brief opening statement, and then I'm prepared to offer testimony from Mr. Schlicht. This is an application for a side yard setback variance. It's also coupled with variances for coverage by above grade structures, coverage by improvements, and gross building area, all within the first 140 feet of the lot. I will state at the outset that this is not a hardship case under section C1 of the municipal land use law, as the property is a fully conforming lot in the R1 zone as to width, depth, and area, without any distinguishing topographical features. This begs the question, why can't the applicants comply? Well, the answer to that is that an applicant can almost always comply. But the case law is clear that an ability to comply does not mean that an applicant is not entitled to variance relief. In this instance, we believe that variance relief is justified under section C2, where the purposes of zoning are advanced and the benefits to be derived from granting the variances substantially outweigh any related detriment. In this case, all coverages measured over the entire lot comply with the ordinance, as do all setbacks with one exception, and that needed to establish an important architectural element, a turret, that Mr. Schlicht is going to tell you about in a few minutes. To the extent that one of the purposes of measuring coverage within the first 140 feet of the lot is to regulate coverage on lots which do not meet minimum lot width requirements, but which are very deep, and that have area that might permit the front of the property to be overbuilt or appear to be overbuilt due to the narrowness of the lot, That purpose will not be subverted in this particular instance, as this lot does meet the required width. Mr. Schlicht will explain that the home from an architectural perspective will be compatible in size and scale with the other homes in the neighborhood, which feature a number of larger homes, and that what is proposed is a substantial improvement over what presently exists on the property. Finally, there is an option available that would involve pushing the home further to the rear. We firmly believe that that would not be a good plan, and that the proposed plan is superior, even at the quote-unquote cost of the variances we seek. As indicated, I have testimony from Mr. Schlicht. Mr. Andrew Alborn, my client, will also want to address the board. And finally, I believe that there may be some interested parties who will wish to be heard at the appropriate time. So unless the board has any questions of me or my clients, I'm prepared to proceed with the testimony of Mr. Schlicht.
No questions. The only thing I do is want to state for the record, Diana Rule recused herself for this application.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Schlicht, you'll be sworn.
Mr. Schlicht, if you would raise your right hand. Do you promise or affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Thank you. For the record, please give your full name and address.
Roger D. Schlicht, Jr., 56 Walker Avenue, Ridgewood, New Jersey, registered architect.
Mr. Schlicht has been previously qualified as a registered architect and has appeared as such before this board on many occasions, been qualified as an expert witness. Mr. Schlicht, nothing has changed, I take it, in your qualifications or your licensing since the last time you appeared?
No.
So unless there's any questions by board members or members of the public, we can have him so qualified this evening for that purpose.
Thank you, Mr. Whitaker. Mr. Schlicht, you've prepared a plan that's before the board. It's dated March 24th, 2021, last revised on May 19th, 2021. Is that correct?
Yes, drawing V1, V2, and V3.
That's fine. I'd like you to share your screen, please. And Mr. Whitaker, if we could, we'll mark that as Exhibit A1, if that's acceptable.
Acceptable.
Thank you. So, Mr. Schlicht, what you've shown, sharing your screen here, is sheet V1.
No, this is
Plan set,
V1.
is that correct? V1? Thank you.
This is
So I'd
V1.
like you to start, please, by describing the property by way of its dimensions and area, and how that compared to the bulk requirements of the R1 zone.
Okay, so I'll zoom in a little bit here. The width of the property is supposed to be 100 feet wide. It is 100 feet wide. It can be minimal 80 feet. So it's conforming in width. The depth is supposed to be minimal 120 feet. It is roughly 209 feet average. So it has extra depth. The area over the whole lot is supposed to be 14,000 square feet. And this lot is 20,964. So due to the extra depth, we have extra square footage of the lot. Then within the 140 feet, it is a conforming lot. It is 100 feet wide times 140 equals the minimum 14,000. So the first 140 feet is a conforming lot.
Okay. And as I set forth in my opening statement, you and I are presenting an application to the board for section C2 relief. That is the quote unquote flexible C variance, correct?
Yes.
Okay, I'd like you to start, and I know you have some photographs, so I'll allow you to, or ask you to intersperse those as you deem appropriate throughout your testimony. But I think that's great. Then we'll mark these as Exhibit A2. This is one sheet of 4 photographs. And Mr. Schlicht, can you just say briefly when those photographs were taken and who took them?
They were taken by my architect, Mila, in our office, and they were done in January of 2021, as you can tell by the snow. And they're all of the subject property. And I'll describe them now or when you want me to.
That's fine. Yeah, you've obviously visited the property, so you can state that these photos do accurately depict what the property looks like, at least looked like in January of this year when the snow was on the ground, correct?
Yes.
Okay, and we can all see the pictures, but just very briefly for the record, Why don't you describe what each picture shows, starting in the upper left, please?
Okay, so this I believe is the original house. It's a Dutch gambrel, Dutch colonial with the gambrel roof, with the brownstone fieldstone on the front, with an open porch. There's no columns of roof, but the actual patio is there. When you look at the rear, you can tell that there was a large addition put on at some time, which in my opinion, you can see in the bottom left and the upper right, off the rear of the house. It's not architecturally compatible with the house. You know, it was just an addition that was put on, I guess, just for square feet. It wasn't, this is the way the house was purchased from the Alborns, from the previous owner. And then the lower right-hand photo is the picture of the existing home with the chimney that we want to retain, and this side piece over here on the left.
It's clear from the pictures, but the property at the moment, at least, features a rear loading garage. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Which is not overly functional at all, as far as width and depth and getting the car 180 degrees around into the garage.
Okay. And if you could describe for the board, just generally speaking, what our client's objective is for this project.
So these are the existing floor plans. I'll just walk you through. So this is the—
What sheet is this of the plan set? I'm sorry, just so we're clear.
This is EX2, which is what we do when we go measure a house. We put all the existing conditions in as a base point for me to design, and then for the drawings to be drawn from.
Okay, so then we'll mark that, Mr. Schlicht, as Exhibit A3, please.
Okay. So right now you have that open porch that we looked at in the photograph, and you walk into the living room, and there's a small dining room, and then there's just a working kitchen. It's not an eating kitchen. And this is the small garage that's to the right of the structure, which you cannot access from the house. You have to go outside. So I believe this was the existing house, and possibly this side piece, but I'm not sure. And then this big family room was put on at some point off the back of the house, which is 1 story. So you can see, you know, for a family of 5, it's not going to fit. The kitchen it's really a 1 or 2 person cooking kitchen. It's not an eating kitchen. There's really no mud room. It's just, the family room is huge. It's actually oversized for the house itself. And then upstairs, you have 3 bedrooms off a rear hallway with a full bath in the hall and then a half bath in the front. So right now there's 3 bedrooms on the 2nd floor.
Can you give the board the approximate size of those bedrooms on the 2nd floor?
They are square footage or width?
Just dimensions, if you could.
So this is 12'6". This is what's considered the master. 15'5", and then the children's rooms are 12'5" by 8, and then over the garage, I'll just go from here, 10 feet by 12'8".
How would you compare the size of those bedrooms to what you normally see at this time?
Well, these 2 bedrooms are definitely deficient, very hard to furnish. Just because of the 8 feet is very tight with the bed, that if you don't want it to go against parallel to the wall, and then with all the sloping ceilings and the ins and outs. I mean, this room, I would not consider the size as a master bedroom, but this is, would be a pretty standard children's bedroom.
Okay. So what are the Alborns looking to try to do with this project?
we'll go to the proposed plans. So first of all, we want to, we would like to maintain the existing house in regards to the front elevation, the brownstone and Dutch gambrel style with the roofs and the siding and the mixture of siding and stone. So on the first floor,
You're referring to V2 now, correct? V2
Yeah.
from your plan set?
let me just shrink this. On the first floor, we would like to introduce a covered porch, which mimics what is there, but actually has columns. And I'll show you an exterior elevation and rendering, which is traditionally found in the front of Dutch gambrels, Dutch colonials. We like to recycle the existing house, so the footprint of the existing house stays. And we'd like to take that living room and make it smaller to keep the fireplace, create a center hall foyer, and then remove the garage and add a dining room. So basically you have the traditional center hall with the living room to the left and a dining room to the back, to the right. Then you enter the house, and there'll be an interior stair that goes up and down. And then recycle this family room. You can see we're actually in from where the family room goes presently today. We don't go out as far, but we do go to the left. So then we have, a rather traditional kitchen looking out to the backyard, breakfast area looking out to the backyard, and a family room as well looking out to the backyard. But then what the amenities that we did introduce that don't exist today is a mudroom, a side entry off the driveway, a mudroom that would have, closet and bench, powder room, a walk-in pantry. So these are service areas that don't exist today. And then lastly, for a couple of reasons, this existing room over here acts as an office. So what I was trying to do is introduce a turret, an architectural turret off the left corner of the house. And turrets look good when they're engaged into the corner of the house versus slid over and just kind of frontal to the house. So that's why we're asking for this particular section right here, a left side yard setback variance. And also we want to keep some breathing room between here and the chimney, because when you move the turret over, it just competes with the chimney. Then on the second floor would be totally new, and it would be 5 bedrooms and bathrooms and a laundry room. So the second floor, it mimics the gambrel roof, but the second floor would be removed and the whole second floor that we're proposing would be new. So then in elevation, so this is the front of the house we're proposing. And I think what is probably the best thing to show you is that, can you see this?
Mm-hmm.
The street view. So this is the house, brownstone and the gambrel roof. So this is the existing.
We'll go back, Mr. Schlick, just for one moment. What are we seeing here? Just so we can identify it for the record, and we'll mark this as Exhibit A. We're up to A4, please.
This is a northern street view. Bedford Road is the road that's on in front of us, and it's looking at the subject property and the property to the east and the property to the west.
Okay.
So this is the existing conditions of the existing property. Whenever Google took the picture, I don't know what data would have been, but it's representative of what's there. I know this house is built and this house is built. So this, from a front elevation, this is the appearance that you see today. And this is our design superimposed into the existing site. That I'll go back to in a minute with the elevations, but I thought this had a little bit more visual clarity.
Okay, so this is a rendering that's the same street view, but the house that we are proposing has been superimposed in there in place of the existing home. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
So you can see, I'll go back to the architectural drawing, you can see the gambrel roof that we've introduced on the front of the house as well as the sides. So I'll walk you around the house in a minute, but I just wanted you to see like the overall aesthetic of the house from the street.
And as long as we're looking at that rendering, in your estimation as an architect, how does the size and scale of the proposed home compare with the homes on either side?
Well, I do have another drawing that compares the building to the west to our property. And it is a smaller house in square footage. It is equal to or slightly less height. We're not here for a variance, we're a legal height. And it is a less wide house. So I think you could see, and I'll show you another drawing which is more frontal, that this house to the west is visually more, has a more size to it from the streetscape than our proposed house. And then the house to the east, which is like a brick mansard, it has a rather large flat facade with a hip roof. So it looks equal to or slightly bigger because of the way the facade is just pretty flat. What we've tried to do is break up the house into pieces and to introduce roof lines that break it into massing that has smaller scale. It's pieces versus one big box. And I'll walk you around these elevations in a minute. In my opinion, I'll just go back. I think the existing house looks too small. If you look at this compared to the other homes, not that that's a bad thing, but it does feel a little dwarfed by what's to its left and right. And there are other homes on the street that will show you that are bigger than both our proposed house and the house to the right. So I think this is an improvement as far as kind of streetscape scale. And I think it's a bit more interesting. It's more in scale with the homes around it, and it doesn't mimic the architecture of the left and the right house, but adds and keeps the Dutch gambrel style, which adds to the variety of the street.
Okay, then do you want to go to the back to the elevations?
Okay. So this is the front elevation with the covered porch, the second floor, the bedrooms and bathrooms. This is a conforming height of 30 feet. This is the office, the proposed office. It's a turret. And we talk about the variance. I just want to point out this is only, it's a one-story structure. We're actually asking for a variance just for this left side of it. Then this is the west elevation that the turret exists. This is the part that we need a variance for. We'll go through the setbacks to the main body of the house, but again, you'll see we kept a low roof around the whole, excuse me, the whole house, which is traditional with a Dutch gambrel, with a gambrel roof called a skirt roof, which brings the scale of the house down, and your gutter line is down more at a 9-foot height versus way up at 16 or 18 feet off the ground. But this is the west side, this is the driveway side, and then in the rear also has 2 gambrel roofs, and then this is a proposed rear covered porch that comes off the family room. So, as I mentioned before, we tried to repeat the architectural gambrel roof, not only because of its style, but just to break down the mass of the house into smaller components that reduces the scale of the home.
You want to talk a little bit about materials on the outside? I know they have not totally been selected, but can you indicate what the Allborns have in mind for the exterior materials?
Yeah, so we're going to, let me go to, Can you see this rendering?
Yes, let's mark that as Exhibit A6. And Mr. Schlick, can you describe, please, for the record, what we're looking at?
This would be the proposed front elevation. So we want to recycle this brownstone and use it on the first floor as it is today, and it wraps around the corner. And then find brownstone that matches, that would finish off the porch with the bluestone porch. And then we have, very architecturally traditional columns and beams and pediments. And then the windows would be double hung windows with shutters with a shake type siding with asphalt roofing. So it's very classic detailing and classic materials. Nothing I think would fit right in as far as I'll just walk you around the house. This is the turret, and then the back of the house. The chimney.
Mark that as exhibit, sorry to interrupt, but we'll mark that as A7, please. That's, again, that's the left rear corner of the house, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
That's the straight on left west elevation.
That's A8, okay.
This is just an aerial view of the house.
A9.
And this is the rear elevation. This is the mudroom entry, bedrooms, kitchen, and then the covered porch. So the covered porch is an open porch. We don't have the intentions of filling it in. I know, sometimes the board asks for something in the resolution. If it were to be approved, that would never be enclosed. And I think, we're favorable to that. And then this is the driveway side. Again, we're bringing that stone around until we don't have a lot of it. So we're going to just bring it around the main part of the house and then end it in the interior corner. But then we just continue the shingles and the asphalt roofing.
Okay, that's A11. That's the right side elevation, or rendering, I guess, if perhaps is a more accurate term. Okay, do you want to go back, Mr. Schlick, to your plan set, and we'll look at the site plan, please, that shows where the house is going to be on the there we go, B1. Yeah, just a little bit more about the porches. I know you're going to talk about that more in terms of their coverage, but just talk a little bit more about the purpose of the porch and why they're a part of this plan.
Well, the front is definitely, it's a reference back to Dutch gambrels, Dutch colonials have covered porches. You can see them around Bergen County. There's historic structures that, some over by Route 17. I think there's one being restored on the East Saddle River Road, whatnot. So it's a very traditional element of this style house. So the front is definitely for curb appeal. It exists, the porch that exists today is part of that porch. You can see the dashed line. We are closer to the road, but we're 51.8 feet, so we're not encroaching. So the setback is fine to the porch, and we made the porch wider just to blend in with the width of the front of the house. The back porch is more of a family porch where, it's very popular now. Past year, a lot of people wanted outdoor space. So it's that indoor-outdoor feel where you walk out of the family room and you can have some seating, and in fair weather, just go out there and have a conversation or read a book. So it feeds off the family room, off the back of the home. But they're both open structures with roofs, but open on all three walls.
Okay, as long as you have that there, then why don't you review the setbacks first of all? You just mentioned the front yard setback. The main part of the house is essentially 60 feet from the street where 40 feet is required. And the porch protrudes about maybe 10 feet in front of that. Am I right? Correct?
Yeah, all the setbacks, I'll go through them. all of them are enhanced. They're greater than what's required. So to the body of the house, the shortest distance is 59.9 on the front. On the right, while 40 is required. On the right, it's 22 feet while 20 is required. On the left, to the body of the house, not including the turret, is 22.3 feet. And then to the body of the house off the backyard is 100 feet, while 30 feet is required. And then the porches, the rear is 89.5 feet, while 30 is required. And the front is 51.8 feet, while 40 is required. So the house itself, excuse me, is it within the buildable area with extra distances on all the 4 setbacks. The setback that we're requesting tonight, in order to get this turret to really be off the left corner and not pushed into this interior corner, is 17.8 feet. And let me just blow it up. It's really just this section of the turret.
Actually, in the R1 zone, the setback is the greater of 15 feet or 2/3 the height. So we certainly don't meet 2/3 the height, but we do exceed the minimum 15 feet, correct?
Yes, and if you took 2/3 the height, the turret's 18 feet, so it would be 12 feet, but the 15 feet is greater. So if you, I think what you're trying to explain is if you looked at it on its own and applied the setback rule, it would be compliant because of its height.
Yeah, that's right. To the extent that the side yard setback is measured by the height of the overall structure, which in this case is a compliant 30 feet. Okay. Why don't we talk a little bit then about the coverages, and that's to the left of that plan that you just showed us, right?
Yes. So the first, the building coverage is over the whole lot. So we have the house, the front porch, the back porch, a landing, the mudroom landing, and then the garage. Our garage is located at the 140-foot line. So it's a compliant garage. It's compliant height, compliant setbacks, and compliant size. So this includes the garage. We're at 18.4%. So over the whole lot, we're at 18.4 versus 20. So we're below the maximum building coverage on the whole lot.
And
Now,
that
140. Go ahead.
Sorry, that calculation, I know it's clear, but that calculation includes the front and rear porches. They're in that coverage by above grade structure calculation, even though they're open and not enclosed, it's not actually part of the building, correct?
Yes, it's included as a structure.
Okay. Then you did the same analysis for the first 140, and then we obviously not excluding the garage, correct? Not including the garage, I should say.
Yes, so over the 140, which is basically this line right here, you can see it, we're at 22.7%.
And if you were to, I know that clearly the front and rear porch are included in that calculation, but if they were removed from that, on the theory that they're not exactly the same impact on appearance and as a structure and as an enclosed building is, then the coverage by above grade structures within 140 would also comply, correct?
Yes, if you remove the porches, the 140-foot lot coverage would be 18%.
Okay.
So we're over in lot coverage by 371 square feet. So you can see both of these porches are in the 300 square foot range. So if you remove both of them, you're at 18%.
Yeah, so to be clear, we are not proposing to remove them. We're just analyzing or helping the board understand that the coverage of the house itself is more than compliant with the 20%. That's the point of that, correct?
Correct. The basic house, not including the architectural portion.
That's correct, right. Okay, and then how about if you walk the board through the improved lot coverage calculations as well?
Okay, so over the whole lot, we're allowed 40% or 8,385. And we are at 6,565, so we're at 31.3 over the whole lot. And that includes a front walk that accesses the street as well as the driveway. And then a long driveway, because we push the garage back 140 feet. So the driveway is, quite a bit, 2,300 square feet. And then a walk to get from the driveway to the house. So we are at 31.3. So we're, below the maximum by 1,800 square feet. So we're well below the 8,385. Over the 140 feet, because of the driveway, we are over by 282 square feet. So we have a variance of 42%, while 40% is allowed. So again, it's over the 140 foot that we're seeking the variance this evening.
Okay, and then the gross building area.
So over the whole lot, the gross building area is below. We're allowed 5,000 square feet. We're proposing 4,728. So we're at 22.6, while 24% is allowed. So over the whole lot, the size of the house is compliant. Over the 140 feet, we're at 33.8, which is versus the allowable, which is 29%. So again, the 140 foot is where the variance is we're seeking tonight in all three of the bulk categories.
Okay, let's talk a little bit about, in my opening statement, I mentioned that there is an option to move the house back. This could be done. Again, to be clear, we are not proposing that, but what would the impact be of moving the house back so that a portion of it went beyond the 140 foot line?
Well, in order to take this particular house and move it back to be compliant, we have to move it back where about 12 feet of the house, not the porch, but the house, crosses the 140 foot line. I think you can see it here. So then, other than the turret setback, the house would be compliant. But you could see that from a streetscape perspective, all of these homes have enhanced front yard setbacks. They're greater than 40, but we would have like an 80-foot setback. So the front of our house would almost be at the back of the adjacent homes. And you do see that in town. There's one on North Pleasant where there's a couple that people push the house really far back. I just think it has just a huge negative impact to the streetscape. You can comply, but I think it has more negative effect than it does positive effect, in that it really creates a void. And, I feel it's much more attractive to have at least the houses somewhat line up. I personally don't find it attractive when the house is pushed back really far when I drive by them. So I don't feel, yes, that's a way that we could get this structure to be compliant, but I'm not sure that in the overall master plan and the streetscape, what people see, that there's going to be any benefit to that. I think it's actually going to be more negative impact than solving the variance issues.
You've already testified that in your estimation, the appearance of this proposed home from the street will actually fit in very well. So it sounds like the variances are desirable in the sense that you're going to have something that fits in with everybody else and maintains a fairly uniform front yard setback. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Now let's mark this, Mr. Schlick. This, I think, is Exhibit A12, and you had mentioned this in your testimony earlier. This is kind of a comparative study, if you will, of our proposed home and the home that exists on the left-hand side of us at 321 Bedford. Is that right?
Correct.
Yeah, you're familiar. Are you familiar with that property, 321 Bedford? And if so, how?
I'm very familiar. I was the architect of record.
Okay, so you have an intimate knowledge of that home, its size and how it was built and all those kinds of things. So why don't you tell them, just describe again for A12, describe for the board what we're looking at here.
So the Bedford has a little bit of slope. I'm not sure this is, super accurate to the actual slope, but we feel that even though our property at 313 Bedford is a little bit higher, our house is not as high as 321 Bedford, but it does slope down. So in height, we're going to be very similar. The width of the house to the west, and I think to the east of the main body of the house are both wider than what we're proposing. The overall width of our home from the turret to the driveway side is 59.6, while the width of the house on 321 Bedford is 68.6. So I think visually you can see that the 321 Bedford looks bigger than 313 Bedford. And I'll go back to the Google Street rendering, where you can see it with all the big trees that we're gonna try our hardest to save, the large trees that are in front of a lot of the properties on Bedford. Then as far as the plan is concerned, the site plan, you could see how the proposed house for the 313 Bedford is smaller than the 321 Bedford, but it aligns itself. The front of it pretty much aligns itself. 321 has a portico, while we have a covered porch because of the Dutch gambrel style. So I feel what we're proposing is not as large as 321 Bedford and fits in nicely with the character and kind of the variety of the streetscape. So that was the purpose of this drawing. But
321 was just recently built, correct? Can you tell the board approximately when that was built, that home?
I'd say like 3 or 4 years ago.
Okay. Well, you were going to go back, I think, to the Google Street photo. Is that right?
Yeah. Just gotta find it. Oh, I know where it is. Okay, here you go. So, you could see, I can't go down the street here, but you can see how this house is, even if it's further away, is equal to or somewhat equal to our house. And then this has a 2-story wall, what I call a 2-story wall.
You're referring to the house to the right of us, correct?
To the east, yeah.
Yep.
So the roof line's up about 17 feet while our roof line is down low. So I think it's nice to have the different styles, but I think ours actually diminishes the height and the bulk of the house by having the roof line down low. So that's, this is the street itself. Another house that's down, I think everyone's aware of, this is on the corner of Bedford and Manchester. Yeah, Manchester. This house is just, it's massive. It's 2-story walls. It's much bigger than what we're proposing. But this is just down the street. As you can tell, it's 3 or 4 houses down the street. So, as far as possibly being the biggest house on the block, I doubt we're even going to compete with some of these other homes. And this is the house next door. So this is it finished. So you can see the slope a little bit, the property or the street slopes down. And that's what we were trying to show with that rating. This is that other house that's next door. So this is, again, a 2-story wall versus what we're introducing with a higher roof line and a wider house.
So the point of this, and I think we can kind of end with that perhaps, but the point of the exhibit you just shown is to demonstrate to the board that what we're proposing, notwithstanding the variances, is of a size and scale commensurate with the other homes on the street in the immediate vicinity of this property, correct?
Yes, and I think it adds to the architectural variety of the street as well.
Okay. Anything else, Mr. Schlick, you want to add at this point?
No, I don't believe so. I'd be glad to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. That would all I have for Mr. Schlick right now, please.
Okay, thank you. We'll just gonna open it up to board members to ask questions. Start with Greg Brown, questions.
Hi, thanks, Mr. Chairman. How are you tonight, Roger?
Fine, thanks. How are you?
Good. Just I noticed that there were some windows on the third floor, but I didn't see any third floor plan. I assume that it's not, there's no square footage up there. The ceiling height's low.
Yeah, the ceiling height is low. It's not over 7 feet. So you couldn't stand up in the attic.
Okay, great. And also and I know it would just, to give any consideration to removing the actual turret? Because I know you'll get your side yard a little closer to the house, and then you'll also, get the square footage down a little bit. Just squaring off that corner.
And we hadn't discussed it, but Andrew can speak to that when if he's open to that possibility.
Okay. Thanks. Those are my two.
Architecturally, the turret kind of ends the house. So like if this wasn't here, you'd have this, I mean, we obviously introduced more glass, but it would be more of just a kind of a straightforward extension. So I think the turret architecturally kind of bookends the house. So I think it does have a role from the exterior, and then from the interior, it's kind of an interesting space.
Thank you.
All right, Gary Negritz, any questions?
Yeah, Raj, if we go to the, your V1, and on the right-hand side there, am I correct that the darkened line that's kind of outlined inside of your proposed floor plan or plot plan is the existing area of the house? It's not that, yeah, that little piece of semi-porch that's there now, and then where you're running your cursor.
That's the garage.
Right.
This is the main house.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the family room. The family room actually goes out, it extends further into the back garage, back garage than our proposed. So yeah, this dashed line represents the existing house and attached garage.
So the house is now, without getting into the ins and outs of it, is overall a little over 8 feet wider than it was when you started. In other words, they were 26-foot plus setbacks on either side. Correct?
Yes,
I think that's what it shows.
Yeah, 26.3 feet and 26.6 feet.
Right. So just
yeah, four, yeah.
It looks like we got 4 feet more house on each side.
With not including the turret.
Right. The turret itself and that dashed line is your 20-foot side yard setback, correct?
Yes.
So that means that the bulk of the turret is complying. It's only that little sliver.
Correct.
Which looks to me to be about, what, 2 foot 2 inches?
It's like 12 square feet. It's not much.
So that's really kind of de minimis. I guess I'm just looking, Raj, at the As usual, I'm not even gonna attempt to critique your architecture because it would be a failure. The thing is, we've got the house next door, 321.
Yes.
Was built in the last several years. Was that as of right?
I don't know what you mean as of right.
Meaning I don't recall that coming before the board for a variance.
Yeah, there were variances offered because, here, let me try to go back to that. Keep on getting this thing in the way. Because of this curve in the road, we had a setback here. And because there's quite a bit of grade drop from like here, then there's a retaining wall, then the driveway comes in. This used to be a paper street. We had to get a height variance because of the topography. I know the curve had setback variances, and I know the height was, we were a little bit high, but no, there were variances offered for this property.
Because I can't find it in my records, and 4 years ago I was on the board.
Oh yeah, there's definitely variances.
Because the piece of property is probably 30% bigger. I'm just looking at the scale of what you put up.
I can tell you. So that property is, see, what are we going to do when we get rid of Zoom? We can't do this in our computers. Property is 24,568.
So the depth looks like it's about the same, so it's got to be wider.
Yeah, the depth is 210 on our, our adjoining side. And it's 125 feet wide. So yeah, it's got an extra 25 feet.
Yeah.
So it obtained a height variance, a front yard setback, a side yard setback, a lot coverage, and a gross building area. Those were the variances.
All right.
That's a 5,000 square foot house.
Oh. All right, I think that's all I have at this time.
Thanks, Gary. Matthew, any questions?
I'm all set. Thank you.
Dan Promner?
No, thank you.
Mike Pickles? Mike, any questions?
No, I'm good. Thanks.
Okay, Jonathan Pepitro?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman, I do. Mr. Schlitt, on the existing home, there is a porch. What is its current size, its length and width and height, the existing front porch?
Can you see my screen?
Yes, I can.
Okay, so the width.
The existing, not what you're proposing, the existing one.
Yeah, this is the existing house.
Okay.
26 feet 8 by, from the stone veneer, it is 5'7".
Okay, so 5 by 26 approximately, and that's how many square feet?
125, give or take.
Here you go, 164. That includes the steps on either side.
Of course. Okay, so 164. And you're making the proposal for a new porch is how large, length and width?
It is 37, 11 and a half by 8 feet deep.
Okay, and that's giving you on your B1 chart here, the number you show us, 321.
Correct.
Okay, so you're taking that front porch on a home that is what was the description of the home again, please, Mr. Schlitt? You mentioned, I didn't hear it clearly, Dutch something?
Dutch gambrel.
Dutch gambrel, okay. So
Gambrel.
you're changing the entire front appearance, the entire complexion of the home, you're changing, albeit keeping your references to Dutch gambrel. You're changing it completely and increasing the size of that front porch 100% or more?
Yeah, so the width of the porch, I think, has to go across the whole front of the main body, just for symmetry.
You think it must go, you're saying?
The width, yeah.
No, you think
I
it
just
must?
think
Okay.
it's such a symmetrical composition. I think if you stopped it and this roof line would just kind of hang out there, you know, so I think the width of it is relating to the house.
Well, the width of it is as wide as it must be because you're making the house itself so big.
Correct.
So it's not the porch driving the house, it's the house driving the porch. And as another board member mentioned, you're adding several feet on both sides of this home, so it's becoming quite wide, which triggers a number of other changes like this increase to the front porch, which is more than double. Also, Mr. Schlitt, can you say how many other homes in the area actually have a turret in the front of the home?
In Ridgewood or just here?
In this immediate area of this house? How many other ones have it?
I'm not sure any of them do on Bedford. And I actually like it when there's variety, that we're not like copycatting a style. I think that's what makes Ridgewood architecturally interesting. It doesn't look like a developer built a colonial next to a colonial next to a colonial. But I think in Ridgewood, you could, this is not, you know, the Willard District was not built turn of the century when this was a very common Victorian element. But I'm sure you know that when you drive through other parts of Ridgewood that were developed, you know, in the early 1900s, turrets exist, like on Brookside, on Ridgewood Ave, on Spring Ave. So, you know, I don't mind trying to bring in some of the old Ridgewood historical features to some of the newer parts, newer being the 50s and 60s parts of the town. I don't think there have to be other turrets in the neighborhood. I actually like that there isn't.
So if we put the two together, your turret and your larger front porch, then there are no other homes in the area that have this much house in the front.
Well, I don't know what you mean by house, the porch?
Well, adding the 100% or more increase in the porch and then your turret as a corner piece, there are no other homes in the area that you're reflecting a likeness of. This is the only house.
Oh, no, there are houses with full covered porches. There's one right down the street. I forget, it's one block over.
Well, I'm familiar with the area and I know the streetscape that you're talking about. Are you saying those other homes are also 37 plus feet wide in the front or just happen to be a long porch? I'm asking if there are any other porches as large and deep as you're presuming to suggest here and your turret, all in the front of the house.
Well, I could tell you, hold on, let me just see. This is a house on, I'll tell you the street name, it's a couple, block and a half away. It is Waverly Road,
Mhm.
which in that porch, wait, that's the wrong drawing. It's the width of the house. I know that,
Well, thank you, Mr. Slid. I appreciate your searching for the answer, but I don't need that much of a detail. What you're presenting here is quite different than what's in the area. There are full width or larger porches, but nothing quite as large as what you're suggesting here.
well, this porch is 56 feet, 6 inches. And it actually has a turret at the end.
Uh-huh. Okay.
This is what the house looks like today. There's a turret at the end. Well, it's an open porch turret, but this porch is 56.5 feet wide. I think it actually, porches, I think, help bring the scale of the house down. It's great streetscape, great curb appeal. You know, it's that connection to the street with your neighbors. So, you know, our porch is smaller than this porch, and this is a block and a half away. But like I said, you know, a lot of these homes are built not when, you know, when the other parts of Ridgewood were built. So there are porches, some of which were built after as a renovation, but it's something I think any layperson going by wouldn't find as being foreign to Ridgewood and this neighborhood.
I understand, Mr. Slick, and I recognize how the porches lead to the streetscape, and they're not uncommon in Village. That's not an issue. My issue is just how large it is. And considering you're adding also a rear porch area, you're showing us some 650 square feet of just porch between front and rear. And you mentioned the garage at the back of the home there moved to the 140-foot line. Why did you put it there and not closer to the house?
Well, it's actually works as far as backing out of this bay. Can you see my cursor?
Yes, I can.
Yeah, this bay overlaps the house, so they ask you to have like 25 to 28 feet to pull back before you start turning your wheel. So from, you know, starting with the location of the existing house, which is right here, and then it put the building coverage beyond the 140-foot line, so it helped with the zoning. So it worked from a planning standpoint, and it worked from a zoning standpoint. This is a compliant garage.
Okay, I understand that. Now, I'm looking at your zoning table information here on V1, and you're asking for 4 variances, is that correct? I see here a yes 4 times,
Yes.
and 3 of those are not coincidentally all exacerbating lot coverage, bulk coverage within the first 140 feet, and by no small amount. So it's a considerable increase in the lot coverage that you're asking for here on a lot that is completely compliant and a home that's completely compliant. So I'm compelled to ask you, Mr. Schlitt, could you have accommodated the interests and not necessarily the need, because personal hardships, as you know, don't qualify for variance relief, but could you have accommodated the applicant's interest in some expansion here and not exceeded those bulk coverages in the first 140 feet? Be a little bit more conservative with or without your turret, but have complied with the zoning requirements on such a fully compliant property, and not have compromised to any great degree the interest of the applicant to expand their home.
Well, I think it goes back to Mr. Rutherford's introduction. We're not asking for a variance via hardship. There is no hardship. What we're asking in our premise is that the 140-foot rule historically, when Dave Larson was chairman, Mike Spadana was chairman, was for the narrow lots on like Kenilworth and Wall 3, where they're 50 feet wide by 300 feet long. And as Mr. Rutherford mentioned, if you took the gross area of that 300-foot lot by 50 and you took whatever percentage you achieved and put it on a narrow lot, you would have an overbuilt property. But this lot is not narrow, it's compliant. So I think if you look at the whole lot, what we're proposing, we're well below all three categories of both building coverage, gross building area, and improved lot coverage. So that's really the crux of our position, is that over the whole lot, this house is compliant. In the streetscape, it's not the biggest house at all compared to the one on the left and the right and others in the neighborhood. So it's the 140-foot rule that we feel is really applicable to lots that are narrow. So we don't have a hardship, but David can explain this better from a legal standpoint. Just to answer your question, there is no hardship. We don't have a hardship.
I understand, and the 140-foot designation exists as it is, and we're obliged to work with it, the board and the applicant. So is your answer to whether or not you could accommodate the interest of the applicant and not exceed by such a substantial amount, if any, the coverage in the first 140 feet, a yes or a no?
Yeah, as Mr. Rutherford started out, he said that, anyone can design a house that doesn't need a variance. But our position is, the 140-foot rule, what the spirit of that rule is, we don't really want to move the house back. Like, we could move the house back and we wouldn't need a variance for anything other than the turret. So as a planner, I think if you really apply all the rules of the zoning and try to eliminate any variances, the result would be, I think, a rather negative impact on the streetscape, pushing this house back 45 feet. So we feel this is a better solution, a better use of planning. And I've tried to exhibit that from a streetscape perspective, and that over the whole lot, we could add over 400 square feet to this house. We could add over 600, another 270 to the size of the house. We could add another 1,800 square feet and improve lot coverage. So we're not even maxing it out over the whole lot. We're not even close. So, like I said, we don't have a hardship, but we're trying to explain our reasoning why we feel this is a good alternative.
Thank you. The issue of moving the house back was not mentioned by anyone except you and Mr. Rutherford, and it didn't come from the board. So moving it back and moving an entire house, that's a large, complex process. So that's not being suggested by this board member. But with the house as it is, do you presume to suggest you could not accommodate the interest of the applicant without these variance reliefs, without these increases that exacerbate setbacks? That's the only way you can accommodate what they would like to have, or not?
Well, the discussion would be to move the house back.
So you're saying the only way that you can help the applicant is if you did move it back?
Well, that's what the applicant had in, that's what the applicant's alternative was. That's what his position was.
I see.
That would be a legal house to move this house back 45 feet. I'm sure you've seen it in town when people do that.
Yes, I have.
So
then you're saying the only alternative is moving the house back. But if you did not move it back, if you left it where it is, there's no way to accommodate the applicant's interest without exacerbating setbacks and asking for variances. You cannot keep this home in any way compliant with setbacks and still provide for what the interest of the applicant is to expand.
The applicant's decision is to move the house back. You know, you'd have to speak to him about alternatives to a third alternative, but you know, his position, and he could speak for himself, was the alternative would be to push the house back. And that's a legal house.
All right, good.
And
Thank you.
Jonathan, I think we've kind of exhausted the whole, you know, we get the question. I have the same exact question you do, by the way, which is, does it need to be this big? I'm with you there. But, you know, what they're saying is this is the house they want, and this is what they're going to want us to vote on. Doesn't seem like they're interested in considering a smaller version of this, because that's what you're asking in a non-direct way. And the response is, no, I want this house, and if it means I have to move the house back, this is what I'm going to build. So that's kind of what I'm getting. So do you have any
Mr.
additional
Chairman,
questions?
I'll interject here. I don't want to interrupt you, and I certainly don't like to, I respect the board's right to ask questions, but I would not draw that conclusion right now, okay? As I
Well,
sit here,
the
I don't have
question,
it.
David, the question was asked as to whether there were alternatives that could be looked at. And the answer was no, the only alternative is to move the house back. That's where I get that.
Yeah, and I understand. I appreciate that. I think what we would like to do certainly is hear other board comment. Mr. Alborn is here, and we're certainly might want to have a chance to discuss with him. But I would ask that no conclusions be drawn. We're still hearing what the board's concerns are on this, Mr. Chairman, respectfully.
Got it. All right. So Jonathan,
Mr. Chairman,
I'd like to give other board members an opportunity to ask questions. Do you have any additional questions, John?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have no more questions at this time, but I will reserve the option to make comments if they're called for by the chairman.
Of course. All right, thank you. Isaac Lebo, do you have any questions? Isaac? I'm gonna take that as a no.
Isaac, you're on mute. I think you were trying to talk.
Oh,
Yeah. Okay. Can you hear me? Sorry. I'm in a weird view here and I was trying to turn it off. Can you hear me now?
We can hear you.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I guess there were two items. I didn't have an issue with the turret. I think it's a nice feature. Adds a nice feature to the house. You know, the gross building area is, while I understand the whole argument that if the house was pushed back, it would, you know, be within compliance, but it's not. So, you know, one of the things I'd like to ask is if there's any wiggle room to possibly reduce that gross building area and potentially remove the roof off of that covered porch to put you closer into compliance with some of the you know, issues that were at hand. Is that something that the applicant is amenable to?
Bruce, I think the applicant needs to be sworn in.
What we should really do right now is continue to have questions of Roger Slip to keep the record straight. So
Okay.
that's a question when we swear the applicant in later.
No problem. Okay, then I think all of my questions have been answered through other members on the board. Thank you.
Great. I guess, and I have one question. I don't know if it's Roger, you want to answer this, or Mr. Rutherford. So you said several times that there's no hardship. This isn't a C1, it's a C2, which, you know, from my understanding is not a benefit of the property owner. It has to actually benefit the community. It has to be a public good, et cetera. You talked about the streetscape. You talk about, you know, the leaving the house in line with the neighbors, and actually a larger house is more to scale. I get all that. But how does a covered porch factor into that when no one can see the covered porch? To me, it seems like a covered porch is really exclusively for the benefit of the property owner and of no benefit whatsoever to the community.
Mr. Chairman, you're referring to the rear covered porch,
The rear, yes.
not the front. I understand.
Correct.
Okay. I think overall, our argument, I think it's pretty clear that you clearly understand it, is that we're trying to show that what we're proposing here, notwithstanding the variances, is fits in with the neighborhood very well, number one, and two, represents a better alternative than what could be done if the house were to be moved back and to avoid the impact of the 140-foot rule. So, but Mr. Alborn is prepared to address the board. Actually, I just took the opportunity to speak with him just for a moment. So he's prepared to address the board. And certainly if the board has more questions than Mr. Schlicht, certainly that's fine. We'd like to have him testify, and we do have some interested parties. We'd like the board to hear from them as well. And then I probably would want an opportunity just to have a word with my client and see how we want to proceed from there, if that's acceptable, Mr. Chairman.
Sure. So why don't we at least open it up to the public for questions? So we've gotten all the board questions for Roger. Let's make sure we get public questions. So if there are any members of the public who would like to ask a question, this is not a time for comment on the application. That will come at a later time. But if you want to ask any questions of the architect, now is the time. Raise your hand and Dylan will let you into the meeting.
I'm not showing any.
Okay. So that's it for the questions. Mr. Rutherford, what do you want to do now? Is that the end of kind of the direct testimony?
Mr. Andrew Alborn, my client, wants to offer some brief comments, Mr. Chairman, as testimony.
Yes.
You raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth and nothing but the truth?
You.
Thank you. For the record, just give your full name and address.
Andrew Alborn, 313 Bedford Road.
And Mr. Chairman, I'm not going to have a direct examination of Mr. Alborn. He's going to just, I think, certainly comment on some of the comments the board has made this evening and also address the board with respect to his overall plan here and objective with this project.
Okay, great. Go ahead, Mr. Alborn.
Certainly appreciate everybody's time tonight. I've spent my entire life in Ridgewood. In fact, I spent my entire life within 100 feet of this house. I actually grew up in the house right behind me where my parents still live today. After brief time in the city, we've chosen to raise our family here. We have 3 young kids. We're looking to expand the house where they can grow into it, be active and contributing members to the town. It's obviously a town I love, and I've chosen to raise my family here. We wanted to design a house that kept the character of the home, preserved the stone, which I believe came from a quarry in Ho-Ho-Kus in the early 1900s. So we're just trying to build a home that is more suitable for our family to grow into. We have a 5-year-old son, a 3-year-old son, a 2-year-old son. So it's an active house that's going to need a lot of space for them to run around in. And that's what we're trying to accomplish. We don't want to build something that doesn't fit in with the neighborhood, that is not egregious in size compared to the surrounding homes, preserves lots of lawn space, preserves the 15 or so odd large oak trees on the property. So we're trying to build a house with character, a house that retains some of its charm, but is functional. The house we live in today is really old. It's not energy efficient. It's deteriorating rapidly. So we really need a modern home that is designed with some character. At least that's what we're trying to do. Again, it's a town I love. It's where I want to raise my children, but certainly want to raise my children in a space that accommodates our family. So that's what we're going for.
Great, thank you very much. Any board member have a question for the Alborns?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, if I may. Thank you, Mr. and Mrs. Alborn. Those were kind comments about the neighborhood in the village, and I certainly share your sentiments as a 3-decade resident myself. However, when you were considering your expansion with the architect, did you give any thought to not exceeding any gross building coverages and expand to accommodate your interests, but stay within or very close to the variance request now that you're asking to avoid this process of asking for variances for gross coverage and still accommodate, considering your home is totally compliant the way it is, and now you're putting it out of compliance.
Yeah, certainly, want to be respectful of, the town's code. When we approached the house, we sat down with Roger, talked about, what the needs for our family were. A 5-bedroom home, given our children, the amount of, our 3 children, the fact that my in-laws visit quite a bit from out of town, having a living room that is enough to, enough space where me and Jackie, as well as 3 large, in size sons, can spend time comfortably, and also something that is sort of fits within the neighborhood. Certainly didn't want it to come across that we weren't respectful of the 140-foot rule. I guess the position or conclusion we came to in working with Roger is that the house fits in really nicely with the neighborhood. It's, when you look at the houses around me, it's very similar in size. We're not, huge front lawns, huge back lawns. So we're trying to maintain that scale. But certainly I can, understand that we are asking for a variance above, in regards to the 140-foot laws.
And the issue of that turret, why did you specifically want that type of design that creates the need for a variance, as opposed to something a little more conventional?
Yeah, I think what we were going for when working with Roger in terms of design is a house with some character to it. As you see, the roof lines we added are extensive throughout the entire home. So we didn't want to put a rectangle on the back of the house. We wanted, the home to have some charm. We think when I drive around town, you go to the house on Phelps, there's a couple other houses in the area where those turrets really add a design element to it. So that was the initial thinking. We like the character it adds to the home that Roger has designed.
Thank you, Mr. Albon. I appreciate your comments. Thank you,
Appreciate the time. Thank you.
If there are no other board questions, we'll open it up to members of the public. If there are any questions for the Alberans, please raise your hand. Dylan will let you in.
I have one. Bringing them in. Will Van Ness, please unmute and turn on your video.
Hey, you guys, I'm sorry. I just want to be clear. Is now my opportunity to speak as a neighbor?
Correct. So the public will comment when essentially the testimony is finished, and I'm not sure it is because they may consider making revisions to their plans or what have you. But you could ask questions now, and then there'll be additional opportunities for questions if there are revised plans or additional.
Okay, I'm sorry. I misunderstood. I don't have any questions. I just, I guess, had a comment as a neighbor.
Yeah. Okay. So there'll be time for that at a future point.
All right. I apologize. Thank you.
Not at all. All right. Dylan, was that the only person who raised their hand?
No, there's one other. I'm bringing them in.
Okay.
Here they come. Joanne Delaney. Please unmute and turn on your video. Joanne?
Hi, for some reason, I'm not coming up on your screen, but I also just had a comment to make. I don't have a question. I'm also a neighbor.
Okay, great. So we'll definitely be looking forward to hearing those comments at the appropriate time.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, that was it.
All right, Mr. Rutherford.
Mr. Chairman, I don't have any further testimony at this time. What I would respectfully ask is, I think there are some, we just saw two of them. I think there are a few more. I was wondering, they've been patiently waiting this evening, and I'm wondering if the board would hear their testimony. I don't expect that it will be lengthy. And then I'd like to have an ability to take 2 minutes and consult with my clients to determine how we would want to proceed from there. But if the
Well, I
board could
think
hear
the-
that testimony, I think that would be helpful. We kind of
I
get
think
that out of the
the-
way, no matter where we go.
Well, so here's the thing, David, is that if we hear the testimony, if we hear the comments from the public, and then your clients revise the plans, they're going to be commenting on plans that we won't be voting on. So I think it'd be best to know whether or not you're going to submit revised plans, which is absolutely, as you know, voluntary. We could vote tonight. If you plan on having us vote tonight, then of course we would open up and have all the public comment that's out there.
I understand, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. I understand that. If I could just take 1 minute here, or 2 minutes, just to reach out to my client. I know the hour is late. If you just give me 1 minute, I do need to do that. If that's acceptable. Thank you so much. Let me mute myself and. Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry. I just need one more minute. I know it's late. I apologize. We just need one more second here and I'll be back to you in about a minute if that's okay.
Okay.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Okay, Mr. Chairman, thank you again. I'm sorry that it took so long. At this point, we do want to consider some changes to the plan. We understand the board doesn't want to hear from the public until the plan is finalized. We understand that. So I'd like to ask it to be carried. I told my client, I don't know if the board can accommodate us on June 22nd. That's probably too quick anyway because of the 10-day advance filing rule. And I believe the board's next meeting is July 13th, which I understand will be an in-person meeting. So if the board could see fit to carry us to that date, we will in the interim give thought to what you've said this evening. We appreciate the time and your comments and consider what changes we can make.
Great, Jane.
Yeah, July 13th.
Okay, so Mr. Rutherford, just to be clear, your clients and Roger have no questions or concerns about what our concerns are. If there's any confusion or clarification required, let us know. I mean, we're not going to design it for you, but I just want to make sure that you go away with a clear understanding of what our concerns are.
Well, and you can certainly express it, better than me. My understanding is, just from hearing the comments of several members of the board, there's some concern about the porch, the size of the porches. There's some concern about the overall size of the home. I understand that there is some concern about the turret, but we'll address that and look at that again as well. I can't promise there's going to be any change there, but that's my understanding, Mr. Chairman.
I think that pretty much sums it up.
Okay.
Unless there's any other board member that wants to ensure that their comments are heard, I think Mr. Rutherford and Mr. Schlicht and the homeowners have enough to go back and come back to July 13th with some revised plans.
Yeah, well, we appreciate that, Mr. Chairman. It is nice to have the direction and to know that we are addressing issues that are of concern. So thank you.
All right, so for the record, this is being carried to July 13th, 7:30 p.m. and it will be live.
David?
Yes.
I will not be in New Jersey, July 13th.
Okay. Boy, had the first, just our luck, huh? The first in-person meeting in 15 months.
Can I be involved via Zoom?
No, we're not allowed to. It's supposed to be totally, either came down, the thing has to be totally, hearings have to be totally live. We don't have the discretion, David.
Okay. Now, I understand.
we did, but we don't.
I understand that because I think doing it one way and or the other way totally is one thing. Trying to combine the two is a whole nother set of issues. So
Why don't we, if possible, could we go for the second meeting in June?
okay, it's June 22nd. That means that's fine. I didn't want to push it off further. I was just trying to think about how much time would be needed. May we have June 22nd, please?
David, just so you know, I'm not here that night, but we'll have somebody cover it, just so you know.
Okay. I appreciate it. We'll miss you, Mr. Whitaker.
Oh, I'll be at a graduation.
Sorry,
That's a good reason not to be here.
Either.
I'm sorry, June 22nd?
We are not home.
That would be okay as long as it's okay that Mr. Cassio hears the second part of it.
Yeah, that's okay. That's okay with us. Mr. Alborn, is that okay?
I am not home 22nd.
Well, can you get on Zoom?
It's on Zoom.
Oh, it's on Zoom. Perfect.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
All right, then if that's acceptable, I appreciate the board's flexibility. It would be carried to June 22nd, which will be a Zoom meeting.
That's right, 7:30 PM.
Okay, that's great. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right,
Thank you,
thanks,
members of the board,
everyone.
for your time.
Thank you.
And I want to thank the members of the public who stuck with us late into the evening, but honestly, you would have, your comments would be moot because the plans that we're going to vote on are going to be different. So thank you all.
Okay, thank you. We'll see you in 2 weeks then. Thank you.
All right. So we got a couple of other agenda items. It's getting kind of late in the evening. We have to approve some resolutions, talk about 129 Undercliff, and then the annual report. Why don't we do the resolutions, and then we'll poll the board to see if they have the energy to talk about the other two matters.
Okay. The first resolution was the resolution to extend variance approval for 1 year on Devon's at 79 Park Slope. Greg Brown,
Yes.
Gary Negritz,
Yes.
Diana Rule. Oh, is Diana back?
Yes, I'm back. Yes.
John Petro,
Yes.
Isaac Lebo,
Yes.
Matthew Bandel,
Yes.
and Dan Perlman.
Yes.
And then we have the Baum residence, 532 Spring Ave. Greg Brown,
Yes.
Gary Negritz,
Yes.
Diana Rule,
Yes.
John Petro,
Just to confirm, Jane, this is a yes to deny.
yes.
Yes, and my answer is yes.
Isaac Lebo,
Yes.
and Matthew Bandel.
Yes.
All right, that's it for the resolutions.
Okay, so what do you guys want to do? It's 10:30. I was going to talk about that 129 Undercliff house that we approved, an open porch, and it looks like they've got some sort of blind that covering it for most of the time, and then the annual report. We could push it to the next
Can
meeting
we skip the annual report tonight?
and just do 129.
Maybe.
We okay with that, everyone? Yeah, what's that?
I said I stayed around. I was hoping to get the annual report or
You
That's-
missed about an hour and a half.
I know. Not a big deal. I'm just joking with you, Isaac.
I know you are, Diana. I know.
You're at least 2 glasses of wine ahead of it.
About 6 loads of laundry.
All right, well, why don't we at least do 129 Undercliff? So for the benefit of all the board, because I'm not sure everybody's aware, we approved a variance for 129 Undercliff, which included a porch. And that porch now has, I don't know what we would call it, shades, blinds, look like they're mechanical. It looks like there's a, there's a mechanical piece of the that goes all the way around the porch, and in there's housed blinds or shades, and then they go up and down, and when they're down, they're completely opaque. There's no light or air going through any of it, and it actually looks worse than if it were walls with windows. So the question is, does that run afoul of our condition that the porch never be enclosed?
My opinion, it does.
I say, what is the
Enclosure
technical
includes
definition?
screens.
Yeah.
It's really a question for Bruce. What is enclosed defined as?
Well, we have said that enclosed includes those screens in the past. That's been the interpretation. I think the owner should be put on notice that it has to be an open porch, and they're violating that. The zoning officer goes out to enforce. We're not an enforcement board, but we alert the zoning officer to that.
Sounds good.
Well, doesn't construction enforce that, Bruce?
It's a zoning issue based on the resolution.
Right, but I mean, doesn't the construction officer, he's got to approve the construction, issue a C of O. If it doesn't,
He's issued the C of O. I think it's done, if it's done after the fact, then it's a zoning officer, it's not a construction officer.
All right.
If it was constructed before a final certificate of approval or CO was granted, it's a construction official because they have violated the plans that we have. If there's something that they put on after the fact that violates the resolution, they're then violating the edict of the zoning board after the approval's been granted, and then it's a zoning officer that said you're violating.
Bruce, do you recall if our resolution stated very clearly what should or should not be, or was it?
I did not have the opportunity to review that resolution for tonight's meeting, but we did. They came in with an open porch, and that obviously is not an open porch.
Okay. Then I.
What's on the plan that we approved is not what's there now, is what I understand.
Okay.
There was no blinds or whatever you want to call it shown installed on this open porch when we approved, correct? Correct.
Right, and there's testimony that refers to other porches on that street, all of which are open.
Right.
So
when they made their application, they called it an open porch. It's not what's there now.
Yeah, and I think, would it be worthwhile in the future if we were to make this condition, that we make it clear to the applicant and perhaps clear in the resolution that blinds such as these would be violating the condition?
Yeah, I think in the future, I mean, we've used the words no screens, no storm windows, so now we use no blinds. That's what we'll do for open porches.
Yeah.
Okay, I agree.
So what's the process for alerting the zoning officer and or the construction official?
Board Secretary Jane has to alert them.
Okay,
All right.
I will do that.
And then are we able to get an update? I mean, is that, I know we're not the enforcement agency.
Yeah,
but,
I mean,
it would be nice for us to get an update.
When you write a letter to a zoning officer asking this to be done, zoning officer should be writing back and telling you how it's been rectified.
All right, good. And yeah, so I guess unless anyone has any questions on that, I think that pretty much closes the loop on that issue.
Bruce, is the first step here going to be a little conservative and say to the homeowner, you're out of bounds here, we'll give you an opportunity to correct it, or do we have to just say, take it away?
It's up to the zoning officer to enforce the resolution.
Okay.
Not up to us to tell the zoning officer whether he makes a phone call or writes a letter or knocks on the door. That's within the zoning officer's discretion.
Very good, understood.
All right, so unless the majority of you guys have a real strong desire to stick around and talk about the annual report, Diana, anyone else, can we do that at the next meeting?
Fine.
I'm okay with the next meeting.
All right, great. So,
I do want to recognize the time and effort to put together the report. I'm guessing our board secretary had a lot to do with that. So I do recognize all this material put together for us. Very nicely done.
yes. Jay, do we have a busy meeting next meeting?
There's, well, 3 new applications and this one that we just carried.
Okay. Well, we're gonna have to get to it. So, for next meeting, plan on, it's probably gonna go a little bit late.
Works.
All right, everyone, motion to adjourn?
Wait a minute, Mr. Chairman. There's a possibility, you mentioned a 5th meeting. There's a possibility for a 5th meeting in June?
No, I said the next meeting.
Oh, the next meeting. I'm sorry.
Sorry, yeah.
But there is a 5th Tuesday, is there not, Jane? Can we use that if we need to?
I'm seeing a no from the board secretary.
Well, no, I'm just considering that's what we have to face now and the pending ones for 13 and 22. We want to think about now maybe having to use the 29th just to stay current, catch up.
I won't be there.
Oh,
I'm not here either. I'm not here.
All right, then, moot point. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, guys, motion to
All right.
adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right,
Good night.
all right, good night, everyone. Thanks.
Good night.
Good night, and thank you
Thanks,
all.
Bruce.
Bruce.
Thanks, Jane. Thanks,
Take
everyone.
care.
Good
Thanks,
night.
Dylan.
Thank you, Dylan.
Good night.
Have a good evening.
You too.
Hey, Dylan, did you get new people yet?
Now working on it.
Oh, boy. Okay. Well, if you need some helping hand to do anything, you let me